Welcome. Today we're diving into a massive science-backed paradigm shift in neurogeriatrics. We're talking about how we protect our aging brains. And honestly, we got some absolutely fascinating recent data to share. It completely flips the script on what we've been told for years about cognitive longevity. So if you're ever worried about memory loss, or just keeping your mind sharp as the decades pass, you are definitely going to want to pay close attention to this. Right off the bat, I want you to ask yourself, what do you think is the single greatest predictor of a healthy brain in old age? What preserves your mind the most as you age? Is it doing your daily crossword puzzles, playing Sudoku? Maybe it's logging hours of aerobic cardio on the treadmill. Or is it something completely unexpected? Well, the answer we're about to uncover might literally change how you approach your daily routine. Okay, let's really get into this. For decades, the public narrative told us, hey, do crosswords and brain games to prevent cognitive decline. But recent longitudinal epidemiological data, like the massive Canadian longitudinal study on aging, which tracked over 30,000 adults, has radically flipped this hierarchy. The data proves that skeletal muscle mass and functional muscular strength are actually the true primary predictors of long-term memory and cognitive resilience. Brain games offer what scientists called limited cognitive transfer, meaning while a crossword just makes you better at crosswords, but building skeletal muscle that actually structurally builds the brain. To understand how critical this is, look at this staggering number. A recent sweeping meta-analysis of 77 independent clinical studies revealed that persistent severe muscle loss, also known as sarcopenia, increases the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease by an alarming 197%. Let that sink in for a second. It also spikes the prevalence of mild cognitive impairment by 58%. We aren't just talking about a slight correlation here. We're talking about an exponentially higher rate of cognitive decline simply based on having a depleted baseline of muscle mass. Now, when we map out what scientists call the muscle-brain axis, a pretty remarkable picture emerges. Your skeletal muscle isn't just a mechanical system for moving year-round. It acts as a massive metabolic reservoir. And get this, an active endocrine organ. Your muscles are constantly talking to your brain, sending those chemical signals that quite literally alter your brain chemistry. When your muscles atrophy, the crucial communication breaks down, and that's what leads to neuroinflammation and neuron damage. So what's the secret to physical chemical communication? It all comes down to something called myokines. These are highly specialized signaling proteins. Every single time your muscle fibers contract under a load, they synthesize and secrete these myokines directly into your bloodstream. And here is the absolute magic part. They cross the blood-brain barrier. They act as biochemical messengers that literally tell your brain to grow, repair, and protect itself. Let's break that down. The biochemical magic of these myokines. We're going to look at three specific chemical superheroes for the brain that are released during muscle contraction: BDNF, IGF-1, and irisin. Together, these form an incredible chemical crosstalk network that acts as a structural foundation for your brain's overall health. First up is BDNF, or brain-derived neurotropic factor. Now, in the scientific community, this stuff is actually colloquially known as miracle grow for the brain. Muscle movement stimulates the upregulation of BDNF, which directly drives neurogenesis. That means it literally causes the birth of brand new neurons. And it does this specifically right in the hippocampus, which happens to be the brain's primary memory hub. Next on the list is IGF-1, or insulin-like growth factor 1. Preserving your muscle increases the systemic availability of IGF-1. Think of this guy as the cellular repairman of the central nervous system. It manages cellular repair, it enhances synaptic plasticity, and it's absolutely vital for clearing out cellular waste within the brain. It quite literally reduces cell death or apoptosis and enhances your brain's resilience against the entire aging process. And finally, we have irisin. This is the myokine released during intensive muscular contraction. Irisin enters the brain and goes straight to work, clearing out pro-inflammatory markers. But even more incredibly, it protects your synapses from toxic beta amyloid plaques. And if you follow Alzheimer's research, you know those are the exact plaques traditionally associated with the devastating progression of the disease. So that brings us to our next crucial point, the power, the squeeze, muscle contractions under load. Because as it turns out, having static muscle mass alone isn't quite enough to optimize this whole system. It's the specific mechanism of weight training and muscle contraction under load that truly activates this neuroprotective myokine release in the elderly. This brings us to the really critical nuance. Sheer muscle volume versus functional strength. While having sheer muscle mass provides a great metabolic baseline, longitudinal tracking shows us that the functional capability of muscle, we're talking things like your hand grip strength or your gait speed, is frequently the sharper immediate predictor of cognitive resilience. If the muscle is active, if it's strong and routinely recruited under a heavy load, it vigorously maintains the nervous system pathways that feed right back up into the brain. Moving right along to the next piece of the puzzle, the Alzheimer's battlefield. Clearing the plaques, let's look at how this directly affects an Alzheimer's patient at the biological level, particularly when it comes to those toxic plaques and tangles that physically define the disease in the brain. Resistance exercise actually physically alters the Alzheimer's battlefield. First, it upregulates amyloid data degrading enzymes like neurofilin. Second, it enhances microglial phagocytosis, which, okay, is basically just your brain's immune cell acting like Pac-Man to actively eat and clear away those toxic beta amyloid plaques. And third, regular exercise reduces hyperphosphorylation of the tau proteins. In plain English, it cuts down the toxic tangles that destroy brain network connectivity. It's amazing. To see the real world impact of this, just look at the striking neuroimaging analysis presented at the Radiological Society of North America. They used brain MRIs to measure a highly specific marker of lean body composition, the temporalis muscle size, right in the head. Over a 6 year observation window, older adults with smaller atrophied temporalis muscles were staggering 60% more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease, and they show rapid structural brain volume loss, 60%. All right, let's put it all together into a holistic formula muscle supporting cast. Because while muscle mass and strength are clearly the absolute strongest predictors of a healthy aging brain, they don't work in isolation. To truly optimize your cognitive longevity, your muscle needs a supporting cast of your other lifestyle factors. Just look at contrast here. Sarcopenia paired with sleep deprivation creates a biological double whammy. Muscle provides the protective baseline, giving you higher cellular energy and those neuroprotective myokines we talked about. But sleep is the mandatory maintenance window that powers the lymphatic system to clear out the metabolic exhaust. If you have low muscle mass and poor sleep, you spike your insulin resistance and basically bathe your brain cells in a highly oxidative pro-inflammatory environment. You absolutely need both the muscle to signal health and the sleep to clean up the damage. We also have to factor in our secondary protectors. Vitamin D acts as a crucial metabolic gatekeeper. When your vitamin D is optimal, it actively preserves the vital skeletal muscle mass while simultaneously minimizing cognitive dysfunction. Alongside this, we got cardiovascular fitness. Now, while muscle is the primary predictor, aerobic cardio acts as a vital secondary driver. It maintains cerebral blood flow and keeps the brain's microvascular to super elastic and healthy. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Modern science has spoken pretty clearly. Reading books and doing crossword puzzles trains a specific localized network. Sure, it's good for you. But building and preserving physical skeletal muscle that builds the literal structural foundation of the brain itself, so to truly protect your memory and your identity as you age, Are you just doing brain puzzles, or are you actively lifting weights to build its biological armor? Think about it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you later.